Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is League Unlocked. My name's Eric, and it is about that time for some power rankings. We already did the team power rankings, but now we're going individual roles, talking top lane, jungle, mid lane, AD, carry, support, because you know that the world's top 20 always leaves some people out. So we are going 10-1 from every single role, starting in that top side, and there are some stacked players. There's a lot of talent that are going to be at this event in every single role. And top lane, normally known as the island, it's tank duty. You're playing Maokai every game, but that's not what the meta is in 2020. We're getting lots of carries, and the best of the best at those carries are your top three. Maybe even throw in your top four players here. Numero uno is Zoom from JDG. I think really what you're talking about, him being number one ahead of somebody like Nuggery, is the consistency. That's the critique that we and almost everyone else have had of Nuggery since his time coming into the LCK. Is the high ceiling is there, the potential, the solo kills, the outplays, the individual carry capabilities, but he's also greedy, can get caught out, die unnecessarily. Zoom almost never has any of that. He's almost never losing a single lane. He played 12 different champions in summer. His most played was actually Volibear, which is kind of insane to think about, in the top lane and not the jungle as your most played. But the consistency, absolutely a factor for Zoom. The man is incapable of losing a laning phase in almost any matchup. But why Nuggery is number two is because I just talked about him dying a lot, but that has been less in the summer split. Damwon is still all about their solo laners. It's just the other players have stepped up more, and you've seen more consistent play out of Nuggery, where he's not getting first blood at every game. He's not overextending as much as he possibly needs to. It's still not quite to the level that we have out of a guy like Zoom, which is why it's 1 and 2. But both of these guys can play carries to absolute perfection at times. And if, Ornn comes around and is still going to be picked, we know that they can both play Ornn, take over a game, because Ornn isn't actually a tank, as we have come to learn. He is insert side category or subcategory for literally any role that you can possibly imagine. But both of these guys are very adept on that champion, the Ram man himself. Number 3 is 369. People are finally, really the summer split, I think, with the combination of the Shy slumping for, really the entire split, and TES propelling themselves to World's contender, World Championship status. 369 is getting the recognition that he deserves as one of the best top laners in the LPL. Firmly asserted himself right behind Zoom in the listing for that best top laner in the LPL. We've seen the pocket picks out of 369, something that even Nuggery and Zoom don't necessarily have to the same level. We've seen the Kale and the Jax in particular be these insane picks out of 369, where he has dominated on them. So those are something to check out for him. He's going to feast on that group, I believe, with Doran and Solo in that group D. 369 is going to have himself a time. He's absolutely one of the top laners to watch out for at this World Championship. Number 4 is your boy Wonder, and anytime we see G2 at their absolute peak, I feel like every time it's Wonder is the second best player behind Caps or even Perks when he was in the mid lane. But when Wonder is playing at this all-pro, almost MVP level status, is really when you see the rest of the map open up for G2. And I talked about Zoom, 12 different champions he's played. Well, Wonder, the man has played Dr. Mundo. We've seen him obviously be one of the best Nikos in the world. The Vladimir was an absolute menace against Fnatic in the finals. Every time that G2 are beating Fnatic in the finals, or beating Fnatic in general, it seems to be Wonder that steps up and is the player of the game status in those series or those matchups. And summer was no different. Yes, Caps played absolutely incredibly also, but Wonder is absolutely in his final form, peak form, heading into the World Championship, which bodes very well for G2 and the rest of the squad. Number 5 has been the youngest top laner at the tournament. He will turn 18 years old at the event, but 17 coming into the start of it. And we're going to talk about Suning a lot, kind of being slept on, people not giving them the respect that they necessarily did, because, hey, Mark and I earlier on in the year absolutely were culprits for that, but they hadn't proven themselves yet. I think the back-to-back series against LGD and the competitive series against some of the best teams in the league now, it started to stack up, and Bin, the Camille, the carry top lanes are what he's all about. And guess what? That looks like what the meta is going to be for 2020. Bin combined with SFM, one of the most lethal top side duos in the entire LPL. If it wasn't for Zoom and Kanavi, you might be talking about them in that category as maybe even one of the best. So Bin is an absolute menace to watch in the top lane, especially when it comes to split pushing. Rascal and Doran are followed up at number 6 and 7 respectively. I think it was pretty clear that Rascal had the better overall season when you're comparing him directly head-to-head to Doran. Both of these guys, they pick up a lot of solo kills, but there can also be a lot of isolated deaths and solo deaths. More so on the side of Doran. He was getting first-blooded a lot. It almost felt unnecessary at times, and he's one of the question marks. There are several question marks that people have surrounding DRX, but I think he almost gets a little bit too much flack. We have still seen moments where he can take over a game and be one of the carries, and I think both of these guys, Rascal and Doran, are going to have the potential to kind of be a surprise carry on their squad, because they're forgotten carries on these squads, right? When you have Chovy, BDD, Ruler, Deft, those are guys who are obviously at the forefront. They're going to be the featured members of the squads. But if you throw Doran on a Kennen, or you throw Rascal on the Camille, just like Bin, something where he's split pushing, we've seen them take over games. We've seen them be player of the games where there's a game-changing team fight, or just their overall pressure on one of the side lanes can completely change the game. So I think both of these guys are players that you shouldn't sleep on heading into this World Championship. And I don't expect either of them to be liabilities for their team, which I know doesn't sound like a very high standard, but they also may have the odd carry performance or pop-off play, if you will. Number 8, talking about a carry top laner. We saw TSM ride Broken Blade and his carry champion pool through the entire playoffs into an eventual LCS championship, and that is why Broken Blade is number 8 on this list, because he thrived on those roles. Sure, maybe he needs some jungle attention to really get the ball rolling, but we saw time and time again when he is given even a smaller advantage in the early game, he can absolutely carry that into taking over a game, whether it's through team fighting or that side lane pressure. If it's an Irelia or a Camille, anything like that Broken Blade is getting his hands onto, that is the win condition for TSM. They showcase that they can play that way, and he can pilot it to almost perfection in a lot of these games. And it's why he's ahead of somebody like Bwipo, who, if we're talking about Bwipo when he's not playing G2, he seems like a totally different player. But whatever happens in his mind when he matches up against Wonder, things just do not go so well. But he is the second half of that Hillicent, Bwipint that we saw throughout the split with Fnatic. There's no question that Bwipo still has the talent, the mechanics, the skill set to be a world-class top laner. Just haven't seen enough of it in the summer split to put him above Broken Blade or any higher than number 9. And number 10 behind him is Impact on Team Liquid. A lot of the number 10s on these lists are a little bit suspect, or they could go to a few different members, right? For the top laners, it feels like it's between Impact or Longjing on LGD. We gave the nod to Impact. He was pretty consistent for Team Liquid throughout the season. He was never really losing lane too badly, and he's just old reliable is Impact. He's the neutralizer of the top lane. We saw plenty of that again. His Shen is always that pick that's just going to come out and can win you a game. Maybe he'll even pick up some crazier things like we've seen in past World Championships. Back when he was on Cloud9, you had the Singed. He dominated some games on Aatrox just last Worlds against Nuggery in some of those matchups. So Impact always seems to get that added buff when the World Championship comes around. And with this version of Team Liquid, it might even just come a little bit earlier when the play-in stage rolls around.